everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of It's Our House podcast with Faz and Deez. I'm Fazza, and that over there is Deez. How you doing, buddy?
I'm really good, mate. I'm excited for today. I'm excited to piss some people off.
Yes, because we've got a show that is riddled with unpopular opinions, and I absolutely love it. But before we proceed, we'll give a big shout out to our sponsor. It's wrestleandpins.bigcartel.com. That's wrestleandpins.bigcartel.com. WRASSLIM pins.bigcartel.com. They've got pins like Stone Cold, The Undertaker, Razor Ramon, Hulk Hogan, and much, much, much more. Head on over, put the promo code IOHPOD15 for 15% off your order. That's IOHPOD15 for 15% off your order. Also, head over to Pro Wrestling Tees/It's Our House Pod and buy our merch. Do it. Do it now. And throw us a like, throw us a sub, give us a view, comment, download us on all your podcast platforms. It really helps us out. Yeah, podcast. That's sometimes I get a little bit posh. Yeah, I'm scoused to the bone, but I've got a bit of poshness in me sometimes. But Deez, do you want to introduce our fantastic guest? He's got more followers than anyone combined that we've ever had.
So today's guest is my good friend Rob, at UTT Rob, as I'm sure a lot of people will know. We go back probably a good few years. One of my first real people that I interacted with about wrestling on Twitter, as I say, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Used to do legendary follow trains, which everybody absolutely adored. They died off a little while ago. Tell us a bit about yourself, Rob. I know you've got something pretty big coming yourself soon, haven't you, mate?
Yeah, well, just on the legendary follow trains, not everyone adored them. That was kind of the problem. So,
yes.
More trouble than they were worth, really.
Yeah, we know someone who likes them.
Yeah, we do.
Well, good luck to them. You know, I think I was quite lucky when I hit on it because no one else was doing it, but it now seems to be the whole of Twitter. So
yeah,
I just believe it's
you started the trend, mate. That's it. You're the trendsetter, you see.
Yeah, I'm the Betamax rather than the VHS. So that's the problem. But it's all good. But I feel it's slightly a step down from your last two guests, having Hannah and Jesse on, and now me. You know, it's,
you're just as beautiful, my friend. Just as beautiful. Have you got any tattoos?
I don't actually, and it's not because I don't like tattoos. It's just I just know I'd get bored, and I'd be like covering it up and redoing it and whatever, and I'd just not have the patience with it. I can't even stay on the radio for one song. I'm sort of flipping on to the next one, so I don't think I'd be any good with the tattoo.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us what you've got coming up, as Dee said?
Yeah, myself and Dan Griffin, who I've known for years. Obviously, when we're not in lockdown, we go and watch wrestling together. But we've been doing sort of remote watching of wrestling for years as well. So we thought we might as well pass on what we do into podcast form. So we're going through the Monday Night Wars. We're looking at each creative period, so the writers, head bookers, etc., and looking at their highest and lowest episodes.
Nice.
Already recorded the first one. There was a short period for a couple of weeks at the start of the Monday Night Wars where Vince McMahon didn't have a head of creative, so it was just all on him. And his idea of good creative is standing in the ring and shouting two dudes with attitude all the time. It's
the man knows his stuff. You've got to be true.
It's funny because everyone says about Vince McMahon being this sort of great filter where all the ideas go through him and all the good stuff and all the bad stuff of Vince McMahon. But when you see him left to his own devices. I don't think he's the filter so much as the thing that needs filtering. But, and then we're going to move on to Cowboy Bill Watts. Again, an interesting guy. When he was at WCW, he was famous for pissing out of his office window onto the cafeteria below. So
nice.
A couple of interesting characters to tackle in the first couple of episodes.
Where's all that located? What's the name? Have you got it all set up yet?
Yeah. So it's we're calling it UTT Podcast. I'm shamelessly jumping on the bandwagon from when I did those follow trains and got that following. And we're calling that Unbooking The Territory. So it's at UTT Podcast. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter, and when we start releasing the episodes, we'll let you know how to access them.
Yes, 100%. All our fans go over there. and give them the support. It sounds like a fantastic idea. And to be honest, me and Dee speak about this often. It's about finding that niche market. You've definitely found one because they sound like an absolutely fantastic episodes. And I will be tuning in, mate. 100%.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. But today you're on It's Our House pod, a pod that was primarily wrestling, but we've evolved. We're doing whatever we want now. We don't care anymore. But today we're going to talk about wrestling unpopular opinions. What we decided to do, each one of us has gone away and done some homework, and we brought 2 unpopular opinions each that we are all diehard fans of and believe at the bottom of our hearts. And I want Mr. Dees to start because he's the heel of the team, he's the heel of the group, he's the drama setter, he's everything you want in a bad guy.
I didn't expect this, to be honest. I didn't think I was going first.
Oh, you're going first.
Right, all right then. Well, let's just put the cat amongst the pigeons straight away then. Unpopular wrestling opinion 1. The Undertaker, Mark Calloway, is one of the most overrated WWE superstars in history. I completely get his appeal, his longevity. One of the issues for me with the Undertaker is he's had a lot of different personas, but at the same time, a lot of them have only sort of ever so slightly varied from other personas. You know, so like the Dead Man and the Ministry, and when he became Big Evil after being American Badass, they were only ever so slight twitches, slight little changes that didn't really feel like much evolution to me. But I think the biggest problem with me with the Undertaker is, how long was he wrestling? 30 years? Well, yeah, it was 30 years because we just had the celebration, didn't we?
Well, it was more than that, wasn't it, overall? It was like 34, 35, something like that. He started in WCW, didn't he?
Yeah, including WCW and territories and that. But for somebody who's been wrestling for 30 plus years, honestly, off the top of my head, I can think of about 6 great matches. Now, I know he wasn't the most athletic guy, but he was very athletic for him, you know, for a guy of that stature, that lankiness, that height, that build, that, you know, that frame. But outside of his 2 HBK Mania matches, 2 Triple H Mania matches, the ladder match with Jeff Hardy on Raw, which put Jeff on the map and made him into a bona fide superstar, I can't really think of much more than that the Undertaker did that really makes him great. He outlasted a lot of wrestlers, sure, but in the last 10 years, can you even really count the last 10 years? Because, you know, he would wrestle once, maybe twice a year. He'd come back for a payout for Saudi Arabia and embarrass himself and embarrass his legacy. I think he's done so much damage to himself in sort of the last 5 years, especially. I really just don't see what the big deal was. I love the American Badass, I will say that. But a lot of that was, I was like 14, 15. I was big into Limp Bizkit, loved motorbikes, loved that sort of like metal persona that he had, that don't give a fuck persona. But like I say, like he evolved into the Big Evil, and really it was just the same American Badass, but angrier and wanted to hurt people a bit more. Like that's not much of a character. You're a wrestler, you're meant to want to hurt people. You know, we saw I think 3 or 4 different versions of old school Undertaker, you know, like the with the Ministry and all that kind of stuff, and the Corporation and all those years. So that's my first one, that the Undertaker, the greatest of all time, supposedly, is underrated. Wouldn't even make it onto my Mount Rushmore.
Rob, I'll let you reply first.
I kind of agree. He's not that great in ring. We've just reviewed Survivor Series 91 for that 90s Wrestling podcast that I do with Dan and James and Paul and Mags. And that Hogan Undertaker match was awful. So
yeah,
it's just hard watching. But he's a hell of a ring entrance, isn't he? And if there's one thing WWE know how to do, it's ring entrance.
Yeah.
And you look at guys like Shawn Spears. I mean, what a ring entrance in WWE, and he goes to AEW, and you know, he's bland as toast, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Undertaker, like you say, especially like the American Badass. I mean, I actually preferred the Kid Rock version than the Limp Bizkit version.
Yeah.
Unforgiven, he returned, wasn't he? Was it Unforgiven?
Oh, that was a
Yeah,
brilliant
I think so.
return, wasn't it?
Yeah,
With, sort of nursery rhyme thing, and then sort of coming over down on the bike. It was brilliant. So an amazing ring entrance, an amazing sort of presence. The one thing that I was thinking about The Undertaker is he's got this streak that everyone looks up to. But if you actually pick the streak apart, it wasn't reflexive of necessarily the best wrestlers at the time.
No.
There are some, people like Snooker and stuff on there. Even like the first time he fought Triple H, that was really early into Triple H's WWE run. And no stretch to the imagination. And even when you've got people like AJ Styles on there, that's way past The Undertaker's best. That isn't AJ Styles from, that not his TNA sort of era. And there's loads of people that, if you were to compile the best 21 wrestlers until he lost the streak or whatever of that period, then there's serious names missing from there.
Yeah, massively. I 100% agree. I mean, we spoke about who did he face? Was it Albert and was it Test and Albert? Was that who he faced?
A-Train and Big Show.
That was it. Yeah, the triple threat, and gosh, that was a horrendous match. What an awful bloody match that was. You're spot on, Dees. I can't argue with you, to be honest. I know this is gonna get us a lot of heat. Probably we'll lose about 5 subs, maybe 6 after this, but. And Rob's right. The presence is what it's all about, isn't it?
And we spoke about this a few weeks ago when we were doing our upcoming WrestleMania greatest. We've recorded a WrestleMania greatest main events episode, and we spoke more about the moments. And I think that's what the Undertaker was for me. He was moments like with the Stephanie McMahon on the crucifix, busting open and nearly bloody well killing Jeff Hardy in that ladder match, Ric Flair.
The presence in the ring. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. I mean, I'm honestly genuinely like even now I'm thinking, he was all about the moments rather than the matches. But I'm even struggling to think of many big moments outside of his entrance.
I struggle to think of his title runs. That's the one thing I've always struggled with is his title runs. I remember him losing the title. I really struggle with him winning it and maintaining a run with it. I think he was one of them guys that didn't really need to hold a title, much like The Fiend, much like Bray. But I still remember his runs.
Yeah,
that's the difference. I
can't picture The Undertaker like holding a championship. I don't know why. It just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't fit.
No, so The Undertaker sucks in D's eyes. Go over to PWCD's. His home address is. So that's the first unpopular opinion. The Undertaker is massively overrated, and I agree. Rob agrees, definitely to a point, and Dees hates him with all of his dark heart. Leave a comment below if you actually believe that, or you think that Dees is full of garbage. And I think we know where those comments will go. So Rob, we'll move on.
We get them comments anyway. We get them comments anyway when it's not an unpopular opinions episode. So.
Well, if you want comments, I think this one might get you some comments. I'll just put this out though. I do watch AEW. I more consider myself a fan of the genre rather than necessarily an AEW or a WWE or whatever fan. I watch just a hell of a lot of wrestling. But I'm a Huddersfield Town fan, and if you want me to tell me how they're doing badly, I'll absolutely tear them to bits because they're playing awfully at the moment.
Exactly right.
Which is how I see wrestling. So I don't think you can, this whole I'll go and watch something else. Well, no, wrestling's a buffet, and there might just be bits that you don't get. Yes. So mine is, and people hold this up as AEW's tag team division being brilliant, and I think what they're saying is that it's better than other places. But that doesn't mean it's good. That just means it's better. And I don't think AEW care as much about the tag team division as they want you to think they do. And that's the opinion. And I'll just run through that. So the first tag team champions, SCU, and it was Kazarian and Scorpio Sky, who aren't the tag team out of SCU. So rather than it being Kazarian and Daniels, who are the established tag team, they got one tag team guy and one singles guy. And you could say, all right, well, we're doing this to build Sky, which doesn't care about your tag team division.
Yep.
But they didn't even manage to build Sky because they pumped him off to dark as soon as the tag team reign was over. So they didn't really achieve anything. The next tag team champions were Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. And that's, again, 2 singles guys out of the Elite. They weren't even the tag team out of the Elite. So you're saying the tag team out of the Elite isn't as good as 2 randoms that we've put together who've only ever been to Cracker Barrel before. They've never tagged. It's like, you know, how's this caring about tag team wrestling? You know, so, and then they went on a massive tear and beat everyone in the division. So that, again, you know, above all the tag team divisions. And then FTR come in. They're presented as the best tag team in the world after they've been treated awfully in WWE for the last year of the run. I mean, they'd absolutely buried these guys. You know, it's all about, and I know wrestling's about promotion, but it would be like, you know, just say, you know, if you suddenly moved Wickham Wanderers into Serie A and started saying they're the best team in the world, just because you're saying they are doesn't mean they are. You know, you've been at a certain level for a while. So, and then FTR win the belts. And the big thing that they have when they win the belts is we're going to have this 20 minutes brush with glory challenge. They're going to limit all the matches to 20 minutes. And if you can't beat us within 20 minutes, we win the match. And not one single match that they had, despite the length of time that matches go and they go for the breaks or they're on dark forever, went 20 minutes until they lost in a match that wasn't part of the series. It's like, what are they doing? And then they have Jericho and MJF being the number 1 ranked tag team in the Inner Circle. When you've got Proud and Powerful in there that are an established tag team, again, they're just doing it to further that singles run. And then you've got other things in the division, like Penta and Phoenix. You have this guy who was the hottest heel in Lucha Underground, you know, the arm breaker, you know, he was amazing as a heel. And on the other side of it, you had Phoenix, who was, you know, the face that the crowd loved. And just because to the brothers, you've just whacked them together to be a tag team. It makes no sense. You've got 2 singles guys, again, that you've stapled together. While then you've got all the established tag teams like the Acclaim and, you know, people like that. And you're putting them in the singles tournament to go for the TNT title. It's like, none of this makes any sense if you care about tag team wrestling.
You're spot on. And I think, you know, going back to your first statement, it's, you look at the rest of the rosters on all of the other shows, and just because AEW have more tag teams doesn't mean it's a good roster of tag teams. It really isn't. If you look at the core of it, some of them are really bad. I mean, for me, the best tag team division, you know, it's gone, hasn't it? It doesn't really exist anymore in that sense. Tag team wrestling, you know, it'll break Dee's heart, but tag team wrestling is dead in that format, isn't it, Dees? It is, though. I know. I'm sorry, but it is.
Yeah. You're opening up a can of worms by having me talk about AEW, mate. We talk a lot about AEW and my dislike of AEW, and it's not because they fundamentally do anything that I dislike. You know, like when AEW first came to be a thing, I was so excited. I was never of the mindset of, oh, I hate WWE, give me something different. I was just excited to watch more wrestling. But tag team wrestling and women's wrestling are two of my biggest things. Massive advocate for both of them. And they just treat both divisions so badly. Yes, exactly as you said, Rob, they've got so many tag teams. Better tag teams, arguably, than any other division in the world. But it doesn't mean that their division is better because they don't know how to use them. They're putting random guys together to make random tag teams, which obviously, let's say WWE have fallen foul of many, many times. Look at who the current tag champs are now with Rude and Ziggler, 2 singles guys just thrown together. But yeah, I think my problem with the AEW tag division is how many bloody factions they've got. Like, I tried naming them all last week. They've literally got about 8 or 9 factions, and then the problem with that is you don't know who the tag team is within the faction, and when it comes to putting on a multi-man tag match, you've got so many that you need to use, and this is why we're seeing like 4v4s and 6v6s, and I'm pretty sure we've seen. Don't hold me to this, but I feel like there's been a 16-man tag match in AEW. It might have been on Dark. I can't remember 100%, but I'm sure there was, and that's just insane. Like, I love tag team wrestling. I wouldn't want to watch a whole bloody show of tag matches. Most episodes of AEW have at least 2 or 3. Most episodes of Dynamite have at least 2 or 3 tag matches. And you can't even give under the excuse of having like a tag tournament on, like we've just had the Dusty Classic with NXT. Like, that was fair enough. That was only for a few weeks we were getting that many, but they were all, give or take 1 or 2 or 3. They were all legitimate tag teams that had been together for many years. Teams like MSK, teams like Imperium, Grizzled Young Veterans, things like that. That's when tag team wrestling is at its best. It may not necessarily be the best division in the world. But as you said, Faz, it breaks my heart to see what tag team wrestling's like now. It's such an afterthought. People forget that WrestleMania was once headlined by a tag team match. There was a time when Vince cared about it and when he saw the money in it. And I know obviously that one had Mr. T involved, so it wasn't strictly a traditional tag team match. It was
classic tag.
It was more of a spectacle, more of an event. Yeah, no, classic tag team specialist, Mr. T.
He loves it.
He's known just for his wrestling work, nothing else. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more on AEW's tag team division and about them not caring about tag team wrestling.
I've literally just had arguments after argument on Twitter about it, and I've tried to make it clear, and I'm like you, Rob, I love wrestling. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care, what company it is, as long as it makes sense and you're not just fan pleasing. I'm a fan of it. Like, I'm not a fan of this, what is it, barbed wire garbage match they're bringing out. Leave that to Japan. They do it well. Leave it over there. The whole point about AEW is that you're meant to be different, but I've seen nothing new. I've seen nothing new from their tag team division. I've seen nothing new from their main event division. I've seen nothing new from their women's division. And all I keep seeing is these old people getting signed over and over and over again to justify, oh, look, he used to be WWE. And like, what's Cody Rhodes say yesterday? 5% of WWE's roster would go to AEW. He think 5% of that roster he thinks is suitable enough for that roster. I'm sorry, but there's much more than 5% that would slot into AEW and make AEW shine, and that includes their tag teams. I would rather have 2 randomers from WWE together in AEW, which would make more sense than what they're doing now. It baffles me, the star power that they could have, the shows they could have.
I know a problem, and I'm going to come on to this in a bit because I know what one of your unpopular opinions is. So I won't try and allude to it too much. But the whole merger going on at the minute with Impact and New Japan and Ring of Honor.
I'm not going to mention it, and he mentions the merger.
No, I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. I'm not going to say what the opinion is on that merger.
Change it.
But like the Good Brothers, look, an incredible tag team, a world-renowned, world-traveled tag team, doing everything that there is to do basically everywhere, coming over and featuring on AWTV more than their own tag teams are. It's that sums it all up. Oh my God, he's got a Sports Direct mug. Direct mug.
Well, I heard in the last episode...
Don't spill it or you'll flood your house.
I heard in the last episode you said to Jesse, if you had to, fight someone off with the thing that was nearest to your left hand. So I thought...
Yeah, that'll win. That'll win most things. I think isn't that a final weapon in some video games? But yes, Rob, going back to your unpopular opinion, is that AEW tag team division is not as good as people think. Comment below. Let us know. Do you agree with Rob? Rob, I think you probably lost about 3,000 followers there, mate. I'll be honest.
Well, most of them are bots anyway, so...
Oh, that's all right then, yeah. The AW bot's gone. Yeah. Right, so we'll move on to my unpopular opinion. And if you didn't know, there was a recent merger that was announced between AEW, New Japan, Impact, and I think Ring of Honor are on there now. And And I think it is the biggest pile of bull to happen in professional wrestling. And I will tell you why. As we've just said, AEW are a brand new company. Impact are established, but still, you know, they're never going to break what they used to do. They're really at the bottom. ROH, yes, could get eyes on it, and New Japan could get eyes on it. But when you have your champion on AEW go to Impact and pin their champion, when you have Tony Khan in an interview, or sorry, in his adverts, standing there with his arm crossed saying, I paid $10 for this interview on Impact, and the fucking stands are loving it, not realizing that all you're doing is making a mockery of these other shows and killing these shows off. Impact was the #1 show of 2020, and I'm not asked who you are. They had such a good year considering the pandemic. They had, you know, Wrestle House, which was just a fucking brilliant idea. It was so well put together. You know, their division got stronger with the WWE releases, and the stories made sense when these people come in, apart from Kay Hawkins. Well, I don't like Kay Hawkins anyway. But then you've got these, you know, New Japan showed up last week on Impact and beat an Impact team. It's like, when is Impact going to get, you know, any chance in this major? I don't see it benefiting anyone in the roster, apart from, I'll tell you who it might benefit: the Impact women. That's the only one, because Impact women will probably just move to AEW at some point. That's the only thing that will happen in that major. It's not helping the business. No matter what you think, you are thinking, oh, it's putting eyes on it, it's putting eyes on it. It's not. Because as Dee's mentioned every week, you had one bump on AEW's ratings and one bump on Impact ratings, and they both just dropped again to where they were at the start. So what is the benefit of this major? My unpopular opinion is the major is garbage. Thank you. Discuss. I'm very passionate about it.
I'm gonna let Rob take this one first. Let Rob take this one.
Well, the one thing about the merger is potentially we do get to see some interesting matches or whatever, and I hope they do it well. I don't think there's ever been an example from history when anyone has done it that well, or anyone's moved, you know, the business needle. I was just thinking about some of these companies that have worked together before. So Ring of Honor works with New Japan and CMLL. And apart from the G1 Supercard of Honor, which obviously, you know, the Field Madison Square Garden, that was brilliant, it never really did much for the business. But the other thing is, they went off an absolute cliff after that event. You know, the fans were deserting them like rats from a sinking ship. And then you had TNA, who over the years, by my reckoning, and there's probably even more, have worked with AAA, New Japan, Noah, Wrestle One, GFW. I don't think any of those have ever sort of moved the needle with anything. Nope. WWF worked with ECW in the late 90s. They had ECW people coming onto Raw in 95 and even later on than that. Again, didn't really move that. They had Jerry Lawler going to extremely crappy wrestling, as he was saying it on commentary at the time. Smoky Mountain Wrestling had a deal with WWF. You know, they had the Heavenly Bodies on there.
Yep.
Again, Smoky Mountain Wrestling went bust, as did ECW, so it didn't save any of those. But on the flip side, New Japan did better when the Elite left domestically.
Yep.
So they've been looking at this worldwide expansion, but they actually did more business in total because they did better business at home, because the Japanese fans weren't massive fans of the Elite. So it just goes to show, when they were focusing on their own company, that they were doing better. So that's one thing to think about with if it's a good idea or not. And then you've got the sort of elephant in the room that hardly ever gets mentioned. AEW, since its inception, has had a deal with AAA, but Kenny Omega is the AAA Mega Champion, but he rarely mentions it, rarely brings the belt to Dynamite, rarely does anything with it. When he, because I used to watch AAA when they had the English language Twitch channel. Although, as Conan said the other day on his podcast, the problem with the commentary team was they couldn't really speak English and had never watched wrestling. So it was the perfect mix. You know, you either want at least one of the two. But they're trying to find someone better. But Kenny Omega was booked like in the third from the last match. You know, there was no way that they were seeing him on the level of Psycho Clown or Dr. Wagner or Blue Demon Jr., that kind of thing. He was booked in the mid-card as the champion,
Yep.
you know, which is just crazy. And AEW they could have used this agreement with AAA to sort of tap up the talent when they were coming to the end of the contracts. But people like Killer Cross, Scarlett Bordeaux, Cain Velasquez, all just walked into WWE.
Yep.
You know, you surely you should have been able to snap up some people like that if you've got the relationship. It just doesn't make sense. And then they've not used the relationship to bring any of the big draws from AAA to AEW. You know, Psycho Clown's not turning up. Yeah, but I actually thought when they had the Blackjack Battle Royal or whatever it was called, you know, where they have 21 people and there's a 21st person, I thought they were going to bring, you know, a big AAA star out.
Yeah.
And it was just Hangman Page who'd already wrestled. It's like, you know, that would have been a perfect opportunity, but yeah.
And we're not.
I don't think.
I want to say we're not, you know, and I'll say it again, I'm a fan of AEW. I don't want people thinking that this is my dig or, as Rob's saying there, our dig at AEW. It's not. It's a dig at the fact that at the center of it is AEW. At the core of it is AEW. And you've got wrestlers coming out and saying, you know, it's good for business. It's going to be good for this. It's good for that. No one is showing me why it's good. Other than, but this person gets to be on this show. Okay, if I wanted to watch that person, why can't I just watch him in New Japan? Why can't I just watch him on Impact? I'm not bothered about him showing up, having a 20-minute fight with, I don't know, fucking Luchasaurus or whatever the hell he's called, and then fucking off back to his own show. I couldn't give a shit because it's not benefiting the story, is it? And I had this argument. Wrestling is great, but I'm not there just for the high spots and the super kicks and, you know, the flip over finishing moves. I'm there for the story. I want to know that when these two people are fighting, or these four people, or whatever it is are fighting, there's a reason for that fight. And going back to your Rob with the tag team thing, that's why the tag team division's so poor. You're just putting this tag team against this tag team for what? What's the benefit? You're not getting nothing out of this feud, and the same's going to happen with this merger. Deez, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, and it's got to be, you know, you've got to be 50-50 with it. You've got to give as much as you take. Like, the thing that sticks out the most for me is this return to big money Matt Hardy, teaming up with Private Party.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, before the feud with Paige, which again I don't really understand, but with Private Party, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, but they went over to Impact, and I believe they won two tag team matches, 2 weeks in a row, and then they've just come back to they've just come back. That's it. Like, okay, what was the point of that? All you've done is just you've invaded another show. It's not even really an invasion, not like a true invasion. If they were to do an invasion angle, I'd be all for it. Have Impact invade AEW. Give me something interesting, something different. Give me something fun and exciting. Keep me guessing. But so far, all they've done is they've, as you said at the start, Faz, they've sent people over to Impact and they've made Impact wrestlers look bad. The best thing that they could do with this is to do something with the Impact women, because the Impact women's division is second only to NXT. Yep. You know, NXT is incredible, but they've got a bit more depth to their women's roster than Impact has, but still, Impact is incredible. Get someone like Deonna Purrazzo to appear on AEW and beat somebody from AEW, because at the minute, all I'm seeing is AEW going over and embarrassing and showing up Impact. And like you say, when you tie in these bullshit adverts that Tony Khan's doing, and I know they're meant to be bad, they're meant to be awkward, they're meant to be tongue-in-cheek, but the more and more I see them, like the most recent one was about 2.5 minutes long, and they were all just piss out of Impact, and I found that really funny, because you've got Brian Cage, who was Impact World Champion, not a particularly good one, not a particularly good champion, not a particularly good wrestler, just a meathead, and he's there to the piss and like, used to be a Impact champion, that was the last time it was relevant. I'm sorry, but as far as I'm concerned, Tessa Blanchard being the men's world heavyweight champion is a hell of a lot more relevant than you, a generic meathead, steroid abuser, being world champion. You know, so their vibe Impact the
Signal's
surface
going
of
a bit,
it. Of it, we've said many times that we're not fans of it. I think it's just gonna hurt those, especially for like an MLW, an NWA, a Ring of Honor, which no disrespect to those, but not many people know them. No, in the grand scheme of things, between those shows, those 3 shows a week, they're probably getting 300,000-400,000 views between them.
Yeah.
I think the only sending Kenny over there to squash somebody.
Exactly, and the only feud that kind of makes sense to me since it's happened was Kenta coming over, and again, that's because there's a story there. You've got Kenta coming for his title from Jon Moxley, and it was a great match. It was. I'll give the backstage, throwing Lance Archer in there again. I think they're just trying to find a spot for him. But he had a great main event this week, apparently. The week of the 25th of February. But that's the only spot that's made sense. But again, Moxley would, if the pandemic was on, Moxley would have to have gone back anyway.
Yeah.
So that would have happened anyway. Do you know what I mean? So from this merger actually happening, and I'm still waiting for someone to tell me why it's a good idea. And I keep asking on Twitter, and all I keep getting is think of the people who could fight each other, but for what purpose?
I'll tell you why the IWC thinks it's a good idea, and this is pretty cut and shut. It's pretty obvious, because everybody, even if it's not truly how they feel, they've been influenced by other people on Twitter, other people on whatever it might be, on Facebook or whatever, telling them that WWE are the enemy, telling them that WWE are the bad guys. We should hate WWE. There's better wrestling out there. You should stop watching Raw. Everybody says they're going to stop watching Raw. They get 1.8 million views. The next week, they get 1.8 million views. Nobody is going to stop watching Raw. It's habit. We're just not going to stop, no matter how bad it gets. But that's where a lot of the praise for this merger is coming from, I believe. It's people thinking this merger is going to take down the big, bad, evil WWE. Vince McMahon's going to step away, blah, blah. WWE will always be the big dogs. Give it 10 years, AEW will not have taken over from WWE. Yeah. No matter how many independent promotions they have come in and help them try and do it.
I think they've showed that, every week in the ratings, as far as I'm concerned. They've had, people might say NXT, are fighting them every week for the same viewership, but they're not gaining, are they? Even when they change, I think they were so close to 1 million at one point. Did they break it? I don't think they did. They were like 900,000 or something. Is that right?
They went over once, but it was just a hair over.
I think they ever so slightly did.
But, since then, they haven't sustained it. It's because the product isn't good enough at the moment. And I don't know why any AEW stan just can't say it. I will openly say Raw is garbage. There's 2-3 elements in there that I really enjoy. But take them out. I don't care about Lacey Evans and Charlotte Flair. I don't care. Asuka's getting buried every week. I don't care about Braun Strowman coming in and demanding matches. I don't care about any of that. But there's then the odd match I'm really hooked into. The same with AEW. But I'm not going to sit there and go, wow, what a show. What a show. And that's what the AEW stands do every single week. Tony Khan saying, thank you for that amazing show. Stop embarrassing yourself. You did it with Fulham. Stop embarrassing yourself. Stop tweeting out. You're owner of a company. Pack it in. Go and do your business. Sorry. I don't like them.
Fulham could get spanked 6-7-0 by Sheffield United, and Tony Khan straight on Twitter like, oh, thank you to the amazing players and the amazing staff that just got embarrassed 7-0 at home.
He's a
freak. He's a weirdo. I can't stand the fella.
Yeah, so
I hate how much extra TV time he's getting at the minute.
Yeah,
as well.
I agree.
He thinks he's Vince McMahon, but minus all the charisma.
Yeah, and I don't like as well the way every like backstage interview goes, well, Tony said I can do this. Tony arranged this. Tony set that match up. It's like, but he didn't, did he? Mm. He didn't. so, it grinds my gears. But yeah, are we in agreement on that one?
Yeah. There's 3 unpopular opinions that have been pretty popular.
Yeah, for us. I mean, like I said, the comment section is going to go a bit hell for leather, especially for me on my fucking rant there. But I don't care. Comment below. Let me know. Follow me. You'll get more of it. But before we proceed, let's head over to our sponsors at wrestlingpins.bigcartel.com. That's wrestlingpins.bigcartel.com. WRASSLIN.bigcartel.com. Head over, they got pins like The Undertaker, Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Razor Ramon, and much more. Head the promo code IOHPOD15 for 15% off your order. That's IOHPOD15 for 15% off your order. And I will say it again, you can put that with any codes and promos they've got going on at the moment, and it will add ours on top. They're cheap in price, high in quality. I said they were cheap last week. That was really bad. Cheap in price.
Yeah, he didn't, yeah.
Really high
it's
in
really
quality.
cheap product.
Yeah. And head over to Pro Wrestling Tee / It's Our House Pod, and you will find this logo here. Put it on the t-shirt. Every purchase you make really helps us out, so head on over there. And we will return back to Mr. D's for his second unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
If his internet picks up.
Another one that might put the cat amongst the pigeons. Am I a bit laggy?
Yeah, you're all right,
It's
mate.
all right.
Just try and stay
I've
still.
been having problems the last few weeks.
Keep your head like just in the middle. It's every time you see you've just moved your head and it disappeared. Then
okay. Okay, I'll stay completely still. My second unpopular opinion is that, as much as you like to believe that he is, as much as you like to hope and pray that he is, Triple H is not the savior and will not be the savior of WWE just because he's done a very good job over the years with NXT. So obviously, Vince McMahon's time is slowly, extremely fucking slowly, coming to an end. We've been saying it for many years. Oh, Vince needs to retire. Vince needs to step away. The company will be better off once Vince McMahon's gone, once Vince McMahon's dead. It won't be, though. The reality of it is, it won't be. It will take years for WWE to recover from the loss of Vince in whatever capacity that might be. His business acumen, his booking acumen, regardless of how you feel about certain shows and certain decisions and certain guys being on top and part-timers coming back, Vince knows what he's doing. He's running a multi-billion-pound business to making record profits at a time when everybody's saying that the show is at its worst, at its weakest. And when occasionally we're getting record low viewership for Raw, but they're still signing billion dollar deals with the likes of Peacock and selling off the network rights and all that kind of stuff. Triple H has done a hell of a job with NXT. NXT is by far my favorite brand, even with how good SmackDown's been for the last 6 or 7 months, whatever it's been. NXT is still my favorite wrestling show rather than entertainment show. You know, it's where I go to watch the best wrestlers in the world put on the best matches. All my favorite guys, my Johnny Garganos and guys like that, and Tommaso Ciampas. Triple H knows how to run a third brand. You know, obviously Triple H is, coaching him, and he's been coaching Stephanie for many years. I don't know what part in this Shane will play, but at the end of the day, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon have not run off their own backs multi-billion-pound businesses. Triple H has ran NXT, which has a roster of maybe, let's say, 40 to 50 superstars. Maybe about 30 or so men, probably about 15 or 20 women. And he's run it to be sort of competent and just sort of like ticking over and floating around that between 500,000 and 700,000 viewership. He just as much as AEW. We talk shit and we say, oh, AEW can't even crack 1 million. NXT can't really beat 650,000. Most weeks they'll put on an absolutely killer show. Like this last Wednesday night should have been their highest viewership in years. You've just had Undisputed Era break up the Sunday before at Vengeance Day. That massive moment. I'm very sorry, Faz. I know that breaks your heart.
It does. I love them.
Incredible faction. The best faction WWE have had probably since the Shield. Those 4 men have been the heart of NXT. So the fact that we were going to see the fallout from what happened with Adam Cole betraying them should have brought at least another couple of 100,000 viewers to NXT. And I think they were still at around that 650, 700,000 mark. Triple H is incredible at what he does. He's incredible at giving the smaller, younger, the fresher guys that opportunity, but he doesn't know how to hook in 1.8 million people. And even if you look at the nights where the shows were unopposed, because there was a couple of weeks where we had NXT on the Tuesday night, I believe it was, or it might have been AEW on the Tuesday night, one of the two. Neither show really saw much of an increase. About 100, 150,000 fans. AEW still didn't crack a million. NXT weren't even hitting like 750, 800,000. So that's a hell of a big jump for him to then all of a sudden have to go up and start managing 3 rosters, all of the investors, all the different networks, all the different companies and advertisers and advertisements that they have, all the things you've got going on in the background, like Susan G. Komen, all the charity stuff, all the Make-A-Wish stuff, across 3 rosters, probably having the best part of, I don't know, 150 superstars all of a sudden to manage, booking 3 shows. He might not necessarily book all 3 shows, but we know that Vince is certainly ever present at both main roster shows. He's always there ripping up the script beforehand. He's always there sitting in Gorilla. Triple H will be expected to do all of these things, as well as also occasionally getting in the ring at Saudi and having WrestleMania retirement matches. There's a hell of a lot for him to do. When when Vince does eventually go away, a lot of those investors are going to worry. Stock prices and shares and that will drop 100%. I'm not a businessman myself. I don't 100% fully understand it, but we've seen literally just within the last year, 18 months or so, there was that massive drop in stock, wasn't there? Triple H and Stephanie
they sold
some of their own shares. Yeah, because I can't remember what happened, but I think it was something to do with the directors on the board. A few of them had stepped down, and it created that bit of uncertainty. Now, if a couple of directors who nobody knows publicly step down and the shares drop that much, imagine what's going to happen when Vince McMahon dies or Vince McMahon leaves.
Yeah.
And in fact, I can bring it back round when they had the illusion angle. Obviously that got scrapped because of what happened with Chris Benoit around that time. But everybody in the world, Donald Trump included, tweeted out to say, "Oh my God, Vince McMahon's died." So many people thought that was real because apparently they've never seen WWE before, and they genuinely thought that Vince McMahon had died, and shares took an absolute nosedive. I'm waffling anyway.
I can 100% see where you're coming from.
A hell of a job.
I think I agree to a point. Obviously, I agree with the share perspective 100%. I think that's going to happen when he passes, no matter what. I think the bit I don't fully agree with is probably the running of the shows, only because I think he does. I think him and Stephanie do a lot more than we know. I think when it comes to maybe not like the final decisions when it comes to the show and the writing and the creative setup, maybe not. But I still think the business side of things, I think predominantly that's probably Stephanie and Triple H. I think the charities, I think, the cancer awareness, all that type of stuff, the Make-A-Wish, I think that falls on Stephanie and Triple H more than Vince. I don't think Vince really has a hand in that. I think we've seen that just from the development of how much it was on every show weekly, like Connor's Cure, things like that. I think that's definitely more of a Triple H and Stephanie thing to push.
Let me reword a little bit. Let me reevaluate just a little bit. I'll focus more on the roster and the quality of the shows. I don't think, because that's what most people's main complaint is, that the show's quality has dropped. I don't think necessarily Triple H coming in is going to improve the quality.
No.
Obviously, NXT has got that quality locked down, absolutely nailed down every single week. The matches,
he's gone.
Regularly getting TV classics down in NXT. But how many times can you do that on Raw? How many times can you do that on SmackDown when you've got so many extra wrestlers to fit in?
Yeah, and
he's in the show to keep them all happy.
Yeah, it's making sure, isn't it, that everyone within that roster gets it. Like, we're seeing it every week now, aren't we? With, why isn't Andrade being used? Why isn't Aleister Black being used? Finn Balor stopped being used, so he went back to NXT. Has Triple H got the business mind of Vince to be so ruthless? I'm not sure, because he doesn't want to lose certain superstars. And, we're hearing Omega said that when him and Triple H had a discussion, Triple H is even open to having that door open for the merger. It's a difficult one. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah.
I think, well, I don't think the quality of Raw would particularly change. I think Raw and SmackDown are marketed to a different audience.
Yeah.
WWE know what those audiences are. So NXT goes to the hardcore fans, and they're trying to bring, it's more family-friendly kids shows to Raw and SmackDown. I think they're going to keep that exactly the same.
Yep.
And in a way, you need to. Previously you were saying about, if AEW increasing the ratings, that kind of thing. It would actually kill the wrestling business long term if AEW did put WWE out of business, because people become fans when they're children. And if you kick out a generation of fans, that's going to cause a massive problem in the future. So you might have a really hot product for the next 10 years, but people are going to get bored, and you're not going to have that churn of new fans coming in to replace them. In terms of NXT, and while it is the better show in terms of, the in-ring wrestling, the problem is it's positioned as less than. Yeah. It's branded as the third. It's, getting sent up to the main roster, getting sent down to NXT, even, the language that they use about it. And if you brand yourself as a sack of spuds, people are going to think you're a sack of spuds. That's the problem. In terms of the ruthless...
I love how you two have got that northern charm, that northern way of saying things.
To be fair, I stole that one from John Fashion. I saw him say that on TV years ago, and it's like, every time I can slide it in, I do. But in terms of the ruthless side, I think he really has. I mean, if you look what they've done to the indies, they've turned ICW, Progress, Evolve, WXW into puppet promotions of the WWE. Evolve was extremely successful with their online viewership. ICW got 6,000 people at the Hydro. Progress got 4,000 people at Wembley. He's turned it into NXT UK. I mean, I've been to NXT UK shows, and they are turgid. They're not full. It feels like it's never going to end. The only decent thing is when you can go to the bar. It's just.
Are you listening, Triple H? You're listening.
The Brit Rest was so hot, and he managed to kill it. And the worst thing is, they conspired, and I think WWE and AEW were equally as guilty of this, for conspiring to kill World of Sport, which was the mainstream British promotion that was going to bring the kids in. We went to a World of Sport tour when they were on tour in Blackpool, and they had more people in to see World of Sport than they get for the Strictly final.
Wow.
Which just goes to show how popular it was, in terms of a live event, or if you could have turned it into a touring company.
Yeah.
But, they conspired, they went in, they stole the talent, they signed the talent. I don't know if you can say it's stealing when they're independent contractors and you're giving them a better offer, but they certainly snaps up the talent. And then AEW came along and said to ITV, why do you want to pay to have wrestling on when we'll give you something for free, What's the TV company going to do? Between the two of them, there's no reason that ITV would want to spend any money on World of Sport, and that's killed British wrestling forever. It stopped a major potential third challenger to that dominance. So I think he is ruthless, because the way he's devastated the indies and Brit Rest.
I didn't think of it that way. Yeah.
And it's very Vince McMahon, because this is exactly what he did with all the regional promotions.
All the territories, yeah. Absolutely spot on, actually. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be all right.
All right, then. Fine, whatever. You crack on.
So, Rob, we'll move on to your second unpopular opinion.
Okay, so my second one is that match star ratings don't matter. And I guess some of this is probably going to...
No, they do. They matter. Let's move on.
and some of it's going to be aimed at Dave Meltzer, because he's the face of match star ratings. But I guess a lot of people do it. Your Kellers, etc., are all in on it. I really think just focusing on the in-ring technical side of wrestling is like if you guys had a podcast about Coronation Street and were rating how well people were pulling pints in the Rover's Return. It's literally just focusing on one aspect. You're thinking about that now. You're thinking we want to
I am,
transition out of wrestling.
Next episode.
I'm thinking about changing it. It's our
Next
pub
episode.
house.
It's our public house.
Yeah.
I mean, Hogan Andre at WrestleMania 3, one of the most iconic matches of all time, got -4 stars. Yeah. How does that happen? Again, I've mentioned that 90s wrestling podcast. I've just watched Royal Rumble 92 in preparation for an upcoming episode. There was a match between Piper and the Mountie for the Intercontinental Championship. And, you get some wrestling events that are half full and some where the crowds are dead and stuff. This was a sold-out stadium. And during the match, the people who've been going around selling foam fingers and popcorn, the people who were working security, the people from the concession stands came and sat on the steps to watch the match. It was, if there was a fire, no one could get out. I mean, it was literally chock-a-block over capacity. The crowd was on fire. The crowd really enjoyed the match for different sort of fire. Meltzer gives it 1.25 stars. I mean,
it's crazy.
What is the point? A room full of wrestling fans think this is the best thing they've ever seen, and Meltzer goes, "Nah, not for me."
Yeah.
It makes no sense. I mean, there are matches. There's certain 5-star matches that he's given. I love Miami Toyota versus Aja Kong. That's a 5-star match. It's absolutely brilliant, and that is just based on the technical style. But it's kind of missing the point if you're just focusing on that, because you might get something like that, but you're missing the other side of wrestling. And
Yes.
he hasn't even kept the calibration of his scores the same, because he's moved into 6, 7, 8 stars for things. So what was 5 stars ages ago was probably a 3.5 now or whatever under his new stretching scale. And all the biggest draws in the history of wrestling have actively reduced the amount of wrestling they do to become a big draw.
Yeah.
You look at Hogan, you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Cena. Big Daddy is the prime example. I mean, he was a serious wrestler. He put on, and he was a serious bodybuilder. He put on another 10 stone and could hardly move, and he was the biggest draw in the history of wrestling. Yeah. I mean, that says it all. And Meltzer says he doesn't want him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, if you can think of anyone more worthy of being in there.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, me and Deez, we speak about this quite often in the chat when obviously they go, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Paige had a 5-star match, etc. But some of the best matches that we've ever seen don't have the best wrestling. And as you said, Rob, that's what's missing. That's what's missing. I mentioned it last week. I said, The Rock, he knows how to work the crowd. He knows how to work, when he's on the outside of the ring. Triple H is the same. They know how to slow down a match and make it work. The same with Stone Cold when he used to come out the ring. If you go back and watch some of it, which will bleed into my unpopular opinion, you go back and watch some of the the Attitude Era. A lot of the fighting took place outside just so that the wrestlers could have a fucking break. Just so one could go and talk on commentators or shout at the camera or have a fight with the fan. But that's my 5-star, because you're telling a story in those matches. And I think all of these now, it's just how many flips can you do in 20 minutes? And then Meltzer goes 5 stars or 8 stars now, as you said. I think you're right. I think that it's so opinionated, isn't it? As you said, there is no rating system in the world when it's driven by people that is right. You only have to look at everything that's happening in the world with the pandemic and gov polls. Do you know what I mean? You've got 70% of people saying the restrictions are too much. You've got 70% of people on another poll saying the restrictions aren't. You've got, and it's the same with these polls. Just because one man says it's a 5-star match doesn't make it true. And you're 100%. I think everyone just needs to watch the wrestling, enjoy it as they enjoy it. And don't go onto Twitter and say that was a 5-star match. Just don't. Just say it was a good match. You know what I mean? Deez?
What annoys me about it is who decided and when did Dave Meltzer become the be-all and end-all of wrestling knowledge? Why, like you say, why is he more... I fucking love Jim Cornette. Maybe it's because we're both angry old men. But why is his opinion criticized, and why do people talk so much shit about his opinion, but give so much value to what Dave Meltzer does? You know, Dave Meltzer's not a wrestler. He's not been a booker. He's not run a promotion. He's not, you know, been head of creative or anything like that. He's not choreographed the matches. He's just some guy who is a wrestling historian, knows a lot of fucking hell. He's forgotten more than we combined will ever know, you know.
Yeah, but at the same
and
time,
fair play to him for that.
Didn't he just get there first?
Yeah, he probably just did get there first, and you know, he's absolutely insane. He said something recently about how any booker worth their weight, you know, worth their weight in gold has learned how to book from him. What? I read that and I was genuinely stunned. It takes a lot to shut me up. It takes a lot to stun me into silence. And I read that and I thought, what is this crazy bastard going on about? Like, what? It's like I don't learn how to bake a cake from my postman. He knows nothing about how to do that, and yet he's I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent now.
No, you're spot on.
I just don't know.
I think you're absolutely spot on, Deez. The problem that we have with anyone like that, it's as soon as you have a fan base, you can go one or two ways. You use it for the benefit of good, or you use it for the benefit of evil. And the fact is, he's not evil. I'm not going to say he's evil, but the man has let that following go to his head, just like Brian Alvarez and the rest of them.
It's tinged with, there's got to be a little bit, somebody in WWE has hurt him. Somebody has cut him deep at some point over the years, because there is a little bit of spite in there, because there's loads of classic matches, and I believe one of them might have been Undertaker Shawn Michaels. I don't think he gave both of those WrestleMania matches 5 stars. I'm pretty sure one of them was 4.75 stars. Where is that 0.25? What is that? What makes it go down that 0.25, or what makes Kenny Omega versus some weird fetish Japanese freak
Fetish
up an extra 0.5 stars? You know, like he stretched it to that 6, 7, 8 stars for New Japan. It says everything that it took so many years for him to give 5 to a WWE match.
Yeah.
He gave it to the 2011 Money in the Bank Cena versus CM Punk match, and then it took many years another one to WWE. He's given out a fair few for NXT. I think he's given about 6 or 7. The North American Championship ladder match.
Yeah.
A couple of Gargano matches, Andrade matches. I have seen a lot of matches over the last sort of 5 or 10 years since that 2011 Money in the Bank match, which I could sit down 100 people in a room, wrestling fans, casual wrestling fans, hardcore wrestling fans, who would say that is 5 stars. What gives Meltzer the right to give it 4.5? What's his scoring system? You know, is it based on near falls? Is it based on flips? Is it based on the story? Is it based on the technical ability? He didn't even give Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit 5 stars for Mania 17.
Yeah.
TLC 2 got 5 stars, and rightfully so.
He loves it. He loves it, Rob. Every goddamn week I have to
amazing match.
Fucking TLC 2. Fucking sick of it.
Amazing match for the and the spots, but in its own right, Angle versus Benoit was a better match.
Yeah.
Depending on, obviously, it's very subjective. It depends on what you look for in a wrestling match, what you like in a wrestling match. If you prefer the technical or if you prefer the high flying.
Which goes back
been a fan of both,
Rob's
so I would
point,
give both 5 stars.
Exactly, and that goes back to Rob's point. It's that what justifies a 5-star match. For example, you know, let's pull it back to football, and they vote the greatest games. Is, you know, Huddersfield beating Coventry 1-0 with Coventry, you know, throwing everything at them, and Huddersfield throwing all men behind the ball, but fighting and putting that grit in. Is that a 5-star match? Or,
no, it wouldn't happen, mate. It wouldn't happen either way around.
Or is you know, United twatting Crystal Palace 10-0? Is that a 5-star match? You can't put any wrestling on the same level. No. And rate it in any form of star matches other than I enjoyed it or it didn't. It's really that simple. It's either I enjoyed
you as
that
a Liverpool
match,
fan are going to give that Champions League final victory
the greatest match of all time,
5 stars.
Yeah, the greatest match
An
of all
Everton
time.
fan very much isn't. A neutral fan might not.
Exactly. And I think you're right. It would be great to know what Meltzer's rating system is. Does anyone know? Has anyone ever seen it? Has he got a little like Back to the Future car? You know,
I'm sure it must say somewhere.
the sports almanac. Has he got one of them?
I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out. Just gets his calculator out, multiplies how many, does a bit of Scott Steiner maths, how many fucking flips there were by how many people there were in the ring. So, divide it by the length of the match. Rob, 17 stars.
Would you replace it with anything? Do you think rating systems need us at all?
Well, just on that, apparently he said it's just how he feels. He says there's nothing objective about the rating that he's given. And I think part of the problem with the Meltzer rating system is that so much weight's given to it. But I mean, this is the guy that said that he had to teach Eric Bischoff what TV ratings meant when Bischoff had worked for years selling advertising on TV for AEW, for the AWA. So, you know, he'd actually worked in the profession, but Meltzer has to teach him what he's doing. I mean, you know, he says stuff like, can people believe it? Like, WCW's ratings went up when Vince Russo, sorry, went down when Vince Russo was booking. When they went up, and all you have to do is look at them. But even when people see them, because Meltzer said they go down, they believe they went down.
Yeah.
It's just Meltzer says, and I'll remove all logic now because Uncle Dave's told me to, and I'll just believe what he said. So I think that's kind of the danger of the star rating system. But yeah, wrestling should be something that's consumed emotionally, really.
Yes.
You know, and people are trying to, in terms of the matches, look at it logically, and I don't think you can do that.
No, and I think that's definitely across the whole wrestling industry at the moment. That's what's missed, isn't it? That's what's lost. That mystique that, you know, everyone's talking about, like, you know, the Fiend's angles and stuff like that. The big, massive muscle heads, all that is gone, and it's been replaced by flips and kicks. And I think, you know, Meltzer's right in the middle of that now, and I think he loves that. I think he absolutely loves the fact that AEW puts these on every week. He's going to say something.
And it is all about, but just to summarize that again, it is just what you're a fan of and being subjective, because NXT, look at guys like tag teams like MSK. They're all about the flips. They're all about the spots and the high diving and doing all that cool shit. Their match against Grizzled Young Veterans from Vengeance Day the other week, 4.5 stars. What about that is missing that 0.5 stars? They're doing all the stuff that Meltzer loves.
Yeah.
You know?
And that, I think that's it's so difficult, isn't it? And rating systems, I'm not a fan. I think you're right. Leave us a comment below, guys. You know, are you a fan of Meltzer? Are you a fan of the rating system? We here on this podcast are definitely not. Don't get me wrong. We do greatest main events and stuff, but it's like Rob said, it's the emotional side. It's not about, is it a 5-star match? You know, like some of the biggest things in my wrestling history weren't the best matches. You know, a lot of the things I remember are debuts. You know, Kane's debut was my first memory of wrestling. That's not a 5-star match. It was woeful, but it's a spot that will, you know, emotionally charge me forever. Seeing that, you know, that meet up. So just leave us a comment below. Let us know what you guys think. We'll move on to the last one, and we'll keep this short if you could, guys. But my last most unpopular opinion is that the Attitude Era was nowhere near as good as people think it was. And the reason why I will say this is, yes, it created some of the biggest stars we've seen, but go back and actually watch. Please go back and watch. Some of these matches, some of these storylines are beyond woeful. And yes, they targeted a generation. Yes, they targeted teens. Yes, they targeted... people forget, you know, it's not just about wrestling at that point. The whole dynamic of the world had changed. You know, we had Satanism getting pulled in. We had cults. all that type of stuff was being spoken about. We had, you know, heavy metal, we had, you know, sex, drugs, and violence, and WWE just took it and used it, and it benefited them. But the storylines themselves, a lot of you can go back and watch the best of the Attitude Era. The best of the Attitude Era was Stone Cold, The Rock, you know, those types of elements. You take them out, you are left with tons of shit that has nowhere to go. And for me, the Ruthless Aggression era was 1,000 times better than the Attitude Era. So that's my unpopular opinion. And I'm going to go to Rob. What do you think?
I'm probably going to disagree on this one because the Attitude Era is the last time that wrestling was mainstream. And I think ever since it's become this niche product that's, you know, fallen into the flips or whatever for what the, you know, the hardcore fan base want. And at least it had that appeal. And I've heard, you know, really high profile wrestling journalists like Wade Keller and Al Castle and stuff say that they enjoyed something from the Attitude Era at the time when they watched it. But in hindsight, they don't. And the problem is when you think about the Attitude Era, and, you know, when I was watching it at the time, it matters what you thought at the time because it wasn't designed to be watched 20 years 100%. Later. You know, and, you know, I'm a massive hypocrite now, so I'm going to go back and we'll watch all these Monday Night War episodes.
That's why he's saying it. He's saying it's great because he wants you to go and listen to his podcast. Don't give me that.
But, you know, but the thing is, it was created at the time, and the whole purpose of the television they were creating at the time was to hit the zeitgeist of the moment and to, you know, tack on to, you know, like Jerry Springer and The Word and Eurotrash and all that kind of programming that was out.
Eurotrash, do you remember that? Jesus Christ!
Oh, with,
you pulled me back there.
I'm Swan,
Channel 4 Classic at 10 or something.
Yeah, but that's what it was competing against.
Yeah.
You know, that was the type of program it was competing against. And these days, I struggle to think what wrestling is trying to tap into. You know, what out of current, you know, the whole, I think they did quite well with things like Total Bellas and stuff, because at least they sort of realized that reality television was big and let's cash in on it.
Yeah.
But they didn't bring that into the main product. They didn't bring that sort of reality element in. They just kept doing the same, you know, wrestling that they've been doing for years. So they didn't sort of adapt with the times. Whereas in the Attitude Era, they actually adapted to the times. So, you know, people say, do you want the Attitude Era back? And it's like, not necessarily the storylines, but the ethos of trying to adapt to what a mainstream audience wants and getting as many people to watch wrestling and having it be inclusive and having it be in that, you know, water cooler talk. Yes, I want that to come back.
Yeah, it's, you know, as we said before, I think a lot of people have said it's competition drove that, didn't he? That's what a lot of fans these days say, you know, the competition between WWE and WCW, that's what led to it. But if you actually look at it, you know, once that challenge was over, WWE still just continued to put out good show after good show. And you know, I will agree, Rob, at the time, I absolutely bloody loved it. But it's when people say it was the best era, for me, it's not. And I fully appreciate where you're coming from. And I don't think competition is the key. I think, you know, now we've got competition. We've got NXT and AEW fighting every week, and not one product is pushing the other one to be better, because you're right, they're focused on the wrong thing. Instead of focusing on just putting on flips and kicks, what's your story? What's driving you? What's going on out in the real world that you're missing, that you're not bringing in? You know, right now, you know, when, you know, Trump was the arch nemesis of the world, if WWE would have had a character like Vince McMahon now, back and then, WWE would be on fire at the moment, because you'd have everyone hating a main character. I think you've said countless times, they're missing that authority figure. I think every single show is missing that authority figure, that person to hate, that reason to tune in and go, I can't wait to see what he does or she does. And that's been dead probably for the last, 10 years? 10, 15 years, I'd say.
I don't know if you...
Sorry, Rob, no, you carry on.
I was just going to say, I don't know if you ever watched Lucha Underground when it was on, but the sort of manager or owner or whatever he was called of Lucha Underground was actually played by an actor as opposed to a wrestler.
Yeah.
The character was called Dario Cueto, and he was absolutely amazing. And they need someone like that.
Yes.
And they were sort of booking him like this, you know, almost links to like the mafia and whatever, and, you know, this really shady character and really layered and complex.
Yeah.
And they just have nothing like that. And you're just thinking, this guy's just sat there at home, go get him.
Yes, yeah, no, you're right. And it's even like, you know, you look at, as we said, with WWE at the time, Vince McMahon, you know, he was the devil incarnate in a lot of fans' eyes. And I think, you know, the reason why it didn't work in WCW is because Eric Bischoff, as you said, he wasn't layered. He wasn't layered as a villain. No one really cared for him when he came out in terms of, yes, you were the NWO. Why? What's the benefit of you being in that group other than taking anyone out? You're destroying the business that you want to kind of flourish.
Who hasn't been with the NWO?
Exactly. It just didn't make any sense. And I think every single, I think that's what's missing, Rob. You've got into my brain, mate. That's, yeah, I'm going to tweet that every week now. WWE, sort it out, lad. Get him, mate. What do you think, Tease?
Yeah, I've been saying that for a little while about how it's one of them, like, you miss it when it's gone. Like nobody thought we were going to miss John Cena, but then we did. Like nobody thought we'd miss authority figures, but I certainly I miss having that Mr. McMahon overriding heel that everybody hates. Everybody's tuning in to see him get his ass kicked. You know, even in the last few years, really, outside of pains me to say it, but because I love Baron Corbin, but Constable Corbin was not a good authority figure. So they've really lost that. Again, though, this is similar to the whole star rating things. It's about what you like and what you don't like. I love the Attitude Era at the time, and I completely agree with Rob. Like, it was designed for the Attitude Era. You go back and watch it now, and you can look at a lot of it, 90% of it, and say, God, this is garbage. But that doesn't really matter. Like, at the time, it was incredible. And I'm going to talk about TLC 2, and fuck you if you don't like it, because
we love it. We just don't want to hear about it.
I can go back and watch TLC 2 now and watch it, knowing I've seen so much better since. But all that matters to me is that at the time, I have those memories of it being the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. Yeah, those high spots, the spear off the ladder, those things will stay with me for a lifetime, just as much as Choppy P will stay with me for a long time, as I don't want it to. But there was a lot of bad in the Attitude Era. I likewise, I prefer the Ruthless Aggression Era. Big Cena fan. The guys Rock, Batista, Randy Orton, factions like Evolution coming through. John Cena being the last real star that we've seen created by the company since The Rock. I also preferred the era from before. I preferred like the 80s and the rock and wrestling era to the Attitude Era, if I go back and look at it. But at the time, you know, the Attitude Era was everything. Everything for me. It's what made me fall in love with wrestling. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a really difficult one, that one. It's both unpopular and popular with me, because I don't really know what side of it I sway towards. I can see it from both angles. I would say it's certainly overrated. I don't think it's the worst era. There have been better. It's not the worst, but it's definitely looked at through rose-tinted glasses.
Yes, and I think Rob put it absolutely perfect in the fact that it was the only time in wrestling in which it was mainstream. And they absolutely owned it every week. You know, the network, the sponsors, the lot. They knew exactly where to go. They knew exactly what direction, where to go. And I think every single company since then has lost that a lot of them are just out of touch with fans. And I don't know whether it's, you know, the creation of social media. I honestly don't know what it is, but people aren't tuning in to the same things they used to. There's too much choice. And I wonder if that is the reason why we're in the situation we're in. You know, yes, 1 week, you know, you tune in and a true crime documentary is massive on Netflix. But as you said, Rob, going back to the 90s, Jerry Springer was the best show on TV every week for 10 years. And I think that's the difference now. How did WWE, AEW, or anyone know what is mainstream. You know, yes, they bring in Bad Bunny because all of a sudden he's blew up, but it's what's the benefit of that in the long run? And I think back in the Attitude Era, they definitely had a better grasp on that. So I tip my cap to you, sir. You've talked me round on that one.
Although it is interesting if you've seen the graph that I posted on Twitter about the effect Bad Bunny had on the ratings and the effect David Arquette had on the ratings.
Yeah, head on over to the Twitter to see that one. But yes, that's my last unpopular opinion. Head over to the comments. Let me know what you think about all of our 6 opinions this week. Let us know if you enjoyed the show, because if you do, we've got a catalogue full of unpopular opinions we can bring out and piss people off with.
All of my opinions.
Yeah. But before we all give our social medias a shout out and plugs, I want to give a last shout out to our sponsor, wrestlinpins.bigcartel.com. That's wrestlinpins.bigcartel.com. WRASSLIN. Pins.bigcartel.com. Head on over. They got pins like The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Razor Ramon, and much, much more. If you head on over to their social media, they're announcing things on the weekly, monthly, daily. Put the promo code IOHPOD15 for 15% off your order. That's IOHPOD15 for 15% off your order. And as I said, that can go with all of the quick sales and fire sales and stuff they're doing at the same time as any other promo code that you can find. So head on over and tell the guys we sent you, and everyone who has bought a pin so far, we love you very much. Thank you. Head on over as well to Pro Wrestling Tees /It's Our House Pods. You'll find this guy on a t-shirt and much, much more. Every purchase you do helps us. It goes back straight back into the product. It gets us guests, it gets us equipment, it gets us everything. It doesn't go into our pocket. So thank you to everyone who has purchased a t-shirt. Oh, yeah, that was tiring. Rob, so before we leave, buddy, do you want to give a last shout out to all your bots on Twitter? Replace them with real people if you can. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, that'd be fantastic. We're more than happy to follow back. It's at UTT Rob. The upcoming podcast is at UTT Podcast again. So I'll follow back on that. I'm a big believer in having mutuals rather than followers. So, if you're real or, if you are just a bot that's trying to sell me cryptocurrency or whatever, then feel free to follow.
Yeah, I think the one thing that, especially with the people we're working with here on It's Our House, is that we want to create a kind of network of family, people to talk, people to interact with. It's the best kind. The wrestling community can be pretty hardcore at times, pretty aggressive with each other. So we're all about opinions, we're all about discussions. Head on over to my social media to have those chats. That's at Faz's Thoughts, FAZZAS Thoughts. And Mr. D's, do you want to plug yours? Send them your way.
Yeah, at PWCDs, as if you don't already know. And just find us everywhere at It's Our House Pod. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok for some reason. Facebook,
Yes, we've
our social media at the minute. Giveaways, memes, nonsense, arguments. All that stuff.
Yeah, just head on over, give us a follow, a like, a sub, and we will return the favor, as Mr. Rob said. Every single like, sub, and everything that really helps us out. We love you all. We hope you have a fantastic weekend or a week or whatever you're doing. Take care of yourself, guys. Have a good one.